In 2003, if someone was wearing this getup outside of the continental US, you would automatically assume he was a certified badass. 5'11 was still known as Royal Robbins, and was a commercial off-the-shelf solution to a low visibility problem. It was still a look that was primarily associated more with hikers, mountain climbers, general outdoorsmen rather than cool guy. It represents a dead age, and it drives a point home. This will all tie into long-term concepts of setting up an effective community, but we have to understand a few things first. We millennials are all going to be aging out of the young demographic data points soon. Our concepts of cool, badass, or acceptable are also going away. While that sucks, that's just how it is. There will be cultural shifts that we don't get or understand. The new generation's slang sounds stupid. What Zoomers care about seems unimportant. They need to get a real job and think realistically. They should be more involved with their future, and so on. If you haven't deeply reflected on what you sound like, congratulations. You sound like mom and dad or whoever raised you. I know that's a broad general brush for those of you with an alternate upbringing rather than the norm. You're still not special. There's always been outliers that made it despite being in a worse position than this. I've seen it, coming from a neighborhood known for gang violence and death right next to high school. There's also the third world experience, but I'm speaking to the usual American experience. Someone effectively telling a teen or young adult, just wait until you grow up. It happened to our parents and grandparents and millennials. It's our turn. Perspective is a cruel thing. It leads to sayings like, if I knew then what I know now. During the course of my day, I primarily act as a mentor to the younger generation, and I explain my thought processes and reasons through the lens of experience. I find that this generation is actually more open to listening why and how something failed and coming up with an alternative compared to the previous one. This is mainly due to the raw information they can access immediately from the computer in the palm of their hands. Their cares aren't unimportant, they're different. Their slang isn't stupid, slang has always been stupid, but it's useful as an identifier of a generation. Gen Z doesn't walk around saying that's tight, millennials never got into saying groovy, boomers never walked around saying dilly. Funny enough, simp can be traced back to the 1910s, so that kind of gives it some class when you use it. We forget how we were at the same age. To the previous generation, our cares weren't important compared to what was happening nationally and globally. Of course, I was a new young soldier in the mid-2000s, and outside of warfighting, I didn't really care about anything else. Afghanistan defined the early years of my enlistment, complete with the cool setups on Light Fighter Forum with rigs made out of really thick cordura, built to last under a limited supply chain. I knew of, but didn't understand third-order consequences of many things we were doing. In 2008, I knew about the housing and market crisis and other domestic issues, Russia's war against Georgia, and the expanding scope of the Great War on Terror, but I was still focused on training Ukrainians and partying at home. It just wasn't my priority to really pay attention and prep and all of that other stuff. I flat out did not care, and that was that. But I grew up in a house that valued being prepared, even though it wasn't called that. It was more about having enough just in case. A more nebulous concept and more of an overall lifestyle. I prepped for Y2K, second coming of Jesus scenarios, and other various maladies, including a world-ending nuclear, biological, or chemical attack, until 2005. I just didn't care at that point because it never panned out, and whatever meager money I had as a young adult was going into this stuff. Others invested and still receive great year-over-year returns to this day. The chronic partiers didn't have much to show for it, but they had a great time and a few stories. The older I got, the more I fell out of the prep mindset until 2009 and 2010. That's when I saw silver start shooting up in price, and while I knew the dollar had issues, for me it was more about the potential to make money. It was a great time for silver bugs. Of course, little mini disasters and world events would define and shape the 2010s, and by 2016, with a family to watch out for, I got back into prepping and learning about the new advances that were made over the decade when I just didn't care. Fast forward to today. A little over 20 years from the day that made me want to serve my country, I still would like to serve my community. I find that the base of who I was in my youth, a young person who wanted to be prepared for emergencies, is still there, wanting to not only survive but thrive and succeed. This became the cornerstone of who I am. So for you parents who have told me it seems like your children aren't paying attention or don't care, you're probably right. But there's also the chance that if you didn't push into the extremes and you planted that seed in there, a prepared mindset and identity will eventually come through. It's happened to me and other preppers my age. We've all had similar journeys, and in fact, it's more than just prepping. It's wisdom. It comes through a life that's lived and a perspective that's gained through loss, hardship, and reflection. Of course, for some of us, the world grinds us to the brink. I've seen it. Bankruptcy, divorce, deaths, these things add up. I cared for my dying dad and was angry at the fact that no one really came to see him until he was already unconscious. I broke my back and was immobilized. I thought it was just a terrible pinched nerve until my leg muscle on one side started to wither away. I pushed myself to stand and walk, at first with a cane to finally use the bathroom, to a trip to Walmart, eventually pushing further until I could fully move again. When businesses were shut down in 2020, I had to take up delivering for Amazon because I couldn't effectively run my business. We've had to choose from the McDonald's dollar menu for every meal and keep it under $25 at the end of the week at one point. A moment of perspective. I've learned I am not special. Some humans are born to suffer from the moment they draw their first breath of air until their heart pumps its last beat. I still breathe. I'm alive when some of my friends no longer are. I've learned new skills through my struggles, like how to persevere, never giving up and refusing to fold. I don't live like my ancestors, tending fields from sunup to sundown while facing the potential of warding off hostile forces intent on taking my head. My family sleeps peacefully at night, while in other parts of the world you would hope that nothing comes crashing down through your ceiling and annihilating everyone you love. A large perspective comes from wisdom and hope. If people folded and flat out died at every despot or every measure of tyranny, there wouldn't be anyone alive today. Ultimately, if you are facing hardship, the bitterest pill to swallow is that no one outside of yourself will truly know how much you suffer, and depending on your relationship with other people, they may not even care. You may not realize it, but maybe you do have a story or knowledge to gift the world. Words of caution, encouragement, a roadmap to places good or bad. All these things serve a purpose, and all are equally useful to a person who's perceptive enough to learn from others' mistakes and accomplishments. Some of us long for an age where we could go back to being pioneers, centurions, or warriors of great renown. That's ultimately a foolish thing to wish, but it's something that's inherently tied to the human condition of romanticizing a bygone period, where all its deficiencies are cleanly paved over. To prove my point that it's nothing new, it is said what is called the spirit of an age is something to which one cannot return. That this spirit gradually dissipates is due to the world's coming to an end. For this reason, although one would like to change today's world back to the spirit of 100 years or more ago, it cannot be done. Thus, it is important to make the best out of every generation. I hope you use this Christmas weekend to reflect on what you've been blessed with, what you possess that other people don't have, and hopefully use the time to meditate on how to be a complete and more capable human. Not solely a prepper, or a tactical bro, or a homesteader, someone who strives to be highly capable in all three aspects, while mastering their profession as well. You will be a new kind of pioneer. I will be putting up my longer video, American Empire, in a series of different parts, because while I can't prove definitively that things were throttled, some things just don't make sense. I think it would make the sections stand out on their own as well. Hopefully that'll give you guys something to watch and absorb in pieces while this new year comes about. With that, until the next video, be good, stay safe, and have a good one.